The generation that was told to go outside and be home when the streetlights come on is now getting slack for being too involved in their kids' lives. And honestly, that paradox tells you everything you need to understand about Gen X parents. If you grew up in the 60s, 70s, or even early 80s, you probably remember coming home to a completely empty house. Your parents weren't there since they were working. Both of them, in fact, probably for the first time in American history and at that scale. Here's a stat I found. Between 1970 and 1990, the percentage of mothers in the workforce with children under 6 jumped from around 37% to nearly 60%, according to U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. You were a latchkey kid. Let yourself in, made something to eat, no biggie. According to a 2004 marketing study by Reach Advisors, researchers defined Gen X as one of the least parented, least nurtured generations in U.S. history. And that's not hyperbole. You learned to figure your own problems out because, well, there wasn't really any other option. Your mom wasn't going to contact the school to contest your grades, and your dad definitely wasn't going to intervene in your friendship drama. He'd tell you to work it out yourself, or not at all. That experience of daily autonomy had a fundamental impact on how you saw the world. Yet the independence was coupled with something else, a kind of emotional self-sufficiency that looked like strength, but sometimes felt like loneliness. Fast forward to now, and if you look at what people are saying about Gen X parents, you'll notice a pattern emerging. Many Gen X parents talk openly about how much their latchkey childhood still affects them. These parents are reflective and with surprising honesty about how they've consciously chosen to parent differently, to be more present and involved with their own kids as a direct response to what they themselves didn't get to have growing up. When Gen X parents get involved in their kids' issues, some have noticed they can be even more protective than the generation before them. They've been called stealth fighter parents, which basically means they're not hovering over you 24/7 like some parents do, but when something actually matters, they go all in. They'll let you handle your own drama most of the time, but if something serious comes up, they'll show up to the principal's office ready to fight for you with an intensity that catches everyone off guard. This isn't how they planned to parent. Many Gen X parents will tell you they swore they wouldn't be overbearing, that they valued the independence they had growing up. But then they had kids, and something quietly shifted. The memory of coming home to an empty house, of navigating problems alone, and wondering if anyone was really paying attention to you, that can all come flooding back when you're the parent now. So what actually happens when you parent based on how you were raised? A psychologist named Diana Baumrind spent years studying different parenting styles, and she figured out that parents basically fall into categories based on two things: how warm and emotionally available they are with their kids, which is responsiveness, and how much they expect from you in terms of rules and boundaries, which describes demandingness. The authoritative style, which is high on both warmth and expectations, is when parents are emotionally present but also have clear rules. It's not the same as authoritarian, which is just strict parents with not much emotional support. And it's not permissive, which is all warmth and loving, but don't really set any boundaries. Authoritative parenting is more like, I care about you and I'm here for you, but you still have to face the consequences of your decisions. From the studies I've found, they tend to handle their emotions better, tend to have higher self-esteem, are better at solving problems, and deal with less anxiety and depression. They also perform better academically, and they're better at making friends. It's a correlation I've found that's been proven over and over again throughout decades of developmental psychology research. Now, there's no large-scale study proving that Gen X parents as a generation have adopted authoritative parenting, but when you listen to how they talk about what they're trying to do, be present but not suffocating, set boundaries but stay warm, show up but still let kids struggle, it maps onto that framework pretty closely. Since Gen X knows struggle in a specific way, they graduated into recessions, watched secure retirement plans disappear, and saw job security become something their parents got to believe in, but they never would. When you grow up learning that the system won't always protect you, it changes how you prepare your own kids for life. You can't promise them everything will be stable, so instead, you try to make them tough enough to handle whatever comes their way. But they're doing all of this parenting stuff in a world that's completely different from when they were kids. Gen X is the first generation raising kids in the era of social media, where literally everything you do can be compared and judged online. For people who grew up when privacy was normal and your embarrassing moments didn't live on the internet forever, this is quite different. The whole idea of posting every achievement or milestone online for everyone to see feels completely unnatural to a lot of them. And maybe this is part of why Gen X parents often seem so emotionally tired. They're managing aging parents who need more care, career plateaus, financial stress, while trying to give their kids something better without making them fragile. They're the sandwich generation, squeezed between early boomer parents who think they're coddling their kids and Gen Z kids who sometimes think they're too strict. You're translating between worlds that don't speak the same language anymore. Your parents think you're too soft, your kids think you're too hard, and you're just trying to take what was valuable about how you were raised, the independence, the resilience, and combine it with what you wish you'd had. The emotional availability, the presence, the sense that someone was genuinely paying attention to you. What's interesting is that Gen X parents, according to observers who study generational patterns, tend not to worry too much about whether they're getting it right by external standards. That latchkey kid experience taught them something specific. External validation is unreliable at best, so they're parenting according to an internal sense of what matters, calibrated by their own memories of what it felt like to be a kid. Which means they'll let their teenager make the same mistake twice because repetition is sometimes how learning actually happens. But they'll also be there at 2 in the morning when it all falls apart, ready to help without judgment. They remember what it was like to have to figure everything out alone, to not have anyone to call when things went wrong. There's also something about Gen X's relationship with technology that shapes how they parent. They're old enough to remember life before the internet, before smartphones consumed everything. They had childhoods where boredom was just part of the deal, where you had to create your own entertainment. They know what presence actually feels like because they experienced both worlds. So when they set boundaries around screens, it's coming from that lived experience rather than fear. They understand the tools but question the costs. They're simultaneously more comfortable with technology than their boomer parents while being more skeptical of it than their own children. When you see a Gen X parent at their kid's event looking all sorts of uncomfortable with all the other parents who are super intense and hovering, but they're still fully there for you, that might sound like a contradiction, but they're trying to raise kids who feel both secure and independent, like you know they've got your back, but you also know how to handle your own stuff. It's not perfect, and it probably doesn't match up with what so-called parenting experts say you're supposed to do, but for a generation that was literally described as one of the least nurtured in American history, the fact that they're showing up, like actually being there emotionally, not just sitting in the bleachers on their phone, is a pretty big deal. They're trying to break the cycle of how they were raised while keeping the good parts, and that's complicated in a way that doesn't fit into neat categories. And maybe that's exactly the point. Gen X has never been particularly interested in fitting into categories anyway. If this resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support these deep dives, hit that join button to become a channel member.